how it compares to previous years.
And some states are already getting their first taste of fall. We're on your side with when we'll finally start seeing the leaves change here in Alabama.
Plus, how will we be impacted by El Nino this winter?
WBRC Fox 6 News. First Alert Weather Extra starts now.
Hey, well, thanks for staying with us here for Weather Extra.
Good to see you, Wes, and of course Tania,
You
meteorologist.
guys too.
Lauren Linehan here. We're always happy on Wednesdays when Tania is here because Wes and I are sweating just a little bit less.
Yeah, it's always, hey, three's company's a lot better, right?
Yeah. And you know,
Absolutely.
even with a 7-person weather team, we're still like, did I get this done? Did I get this done?
Yes.
So we got a lot of weather here at Fox 6, but hey, we're so excited about this new weather show. We've been doing it, what, about 2 weeks now?
I know.
Crazy.
Yeah, I was telling somebody the other day, you know, it's like football season. We're already coming up on the weekend 5 of football
crazy.
season. You know,
Oh,
once the
wow.
football season gets here, it just flies by.
Flies by.
Yeah.
The question is, when are we going to get some real football weather?
That is the question,
It's
because
like-
these 80s and 90s are still sticking around.
Yeah, we were talking about the kickoff forecast. You know, we broke out the first kickoff forecast today for the weekend. I mean, we're talking 90 degrees or close to 90 degrees during the afternoon there on Saturday. It's going to be a hot weekend. But hey, let's go to the next big thing as we kick it off here with the drought monitor. And I shared this earlier, and you can see the abnormally dry conditions that are starting to develop. And it looks like we're going to be dealing with some drought conditions here likely over the next 7 to 10 days with the lack of rain that we have across the state. Let's take a look at what's happening here. I want to show you something. You see this ridge of high pressure that's over New England? Well, what's happening, it is forcing, you see how it's channeling this air down the slopes of the Appalachians right into the southeast. If you notice that breeze today right around lunchtime, well, that's what's causing it. We have this ridge of high pressure that's developed, and it's giving us, we call this the wedge. You look at the meteorology textbook, it's called cold air damming, as the topography helps to kind of channel that air in. And that's why it feels a little bit cooler. If you're in Anniston and East Alabama, we're enjoying those comfortable conditions, and especially for Birmingham Points East tonight, you're going to notice in the morning out the door that there's going to be more of a crisp feel to the air. It won't feel quite as humid, so more of a fall-like sort of setup. But radar is very quiet for most of the area. However, as we head over to a wider view, look at this. We got some wet weather around Chattanooga. This is why we kept a small 10% chance for a shower in the forecast. There's a chance that some of this may hold together, perhaps reach us there across northern Cherokee County, but that's about all we can squeeze out. Looks like most areas, again, staying very, very dry for this evening. So first alert forecast for tonight, staying dry for most areas and a nice drop in those temperatures, that light breeze out of the east direction. Good evening, get a walk in, and it's going to be a bright moonlit night out there. We're coming up on a full moon this weekend, so should be some very tranquil conditions, at least for the evening hours. But we'll talk more about the weekend. Look ahead at what's happening in the tropics. That's all coming up right here on Weather Extra.
Thanks, Wes. And Wes, I got to talk about my little school visit today. Well, it wasn't little. I'm going to call it a big visit. I actually went to the Bessemer Public Library and read my new book, Weather Wonders, Exploring the Skies with Mom, and read that to the surrounding kids or kids from the surrounding area. And I want you to check it out. Take a look at this. So I first want to give a big thank you to Jania Knight and the Bessemer Public Library team. Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. They all screamed hello from the Bessemer Public Library. And I want to give a big shout out to Jania Knight and the Bessemer Public Library team for inviting me out. Once again, I read my children's book, Weather Wonders, Exploring the Skies with Mom, and I got to speak with them about some severe weather safety tips and gave them a luxury tour of the WBRC First Alert Storm Tracker. Look at that. We learned so much and had so much fun, and we even enjoyed some snacks and desserts after the little book reading. So it was a pleasure seeing all the smiles on their faces and just getting to hang around in Bessemer area. And it was just the weather showed out too, and they also got to be meteorologists for the day. So the best part of it all, I got to tell you though, I walked away with my first Jefferson County Public Library card. So you might see me in the public library from this day moving forward. Lauren.
Thanks, Tania. And I'm just saying, now that I learned that not only did you get a library card, they got snacks too, I'll be rolling up with you next time. Well, new research from NOAA shows that the last month was the hottest August on record. Records date back 174 years. Last month alone, the average temperature rose to 62.3 degrees, 2 degrees higher than August's previous average temperature. Now remember, this is averaged all across the globe, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. This marks the 534th consecutive month, aka nearly 45 years, where temperatures ran above average.
All right, Lauren, and in Colorado, despite fall colors arriving a little later than usual, the changing foliage is still a sight to behold. Check out this stunning view. The leaves are starting to change to yellows and oranges across the Rocky Mountains. Someone shared a photo from Utah, just incredible. They're currently having one of the wettest years on record, which experts say will bring on, well, we talked about that last week, the wet fall can lead to more vivid colors, and a dry fall can sometimes delay the onset. You know, that may be a factor when it comes to our fall colors, Lauren. So hopefully we get quite a show here in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, Wes, hoping so, and I'll definitely be able to give you that fall foliage forecast later in the show. But in the meantime, I know we haven't had any pretty fall colors around here just yet, but hey, we'll take these nice sunrise and sunset photos. This was sent in from Havana, Alabama. A beautiful sunrise. Ooh, I like this one. No offense to Havana, Alabama, but if it's a beach photo, that normally kind of trumps everything, right? Loving this view from Fort Walton Beach down in Florida, sent in from Donna, and man, Lake Mitchell looking mighty fine with that sunrise and sunset photo. And then also Lay Lake. I'm telling y'all, with some of the pictures you send in from Lay Lake, your houses look really nice. So if y'all ever want to have the First Alert weather team out there, make sure to hit us up. But we'll be right back in 30 seconds with more First Alert Weather Extra.
Welcome back to First Alert Weather Extra. I'm First Alert meteorologist Tania Michelle here, and oh my goodness, I have a special guest, but this one hits really home for me because we went to Mississippi State University together. It's so good to have you on the show, Brandon.
Thanks, Tania, for having me. I didn't expect it.
Well, he's in town, but you're a meteorologist out at KOB4 TV in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I previously worked, and we want to know a little bit about what's going on there. How's the weather there right now? I know you're just wrapping up monsoon season.
Yeah, so monsoon season, unfortunately, Tania, was just awful. We did not have a very good monsoon season. It was very dry. In fact, now monsoon season, just for example, goes June 1st through September 30th in Albuquerque. That's usually about 60% of our annual precipitation in New Mexico. And we had one of the driest monsoons on record.
Wow.
So we did not have very much. And so we were talking about the fall colors just a little bit earlier. We're afraid that might affect that in our Bosque in Albuquerque, which is where the Rio Grande runs through.
That makes sense. Okay, and so coming up, I know you're ending the monsoon season, but very soon we're going to actually have the eclipse, and that's October 14th, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Explain why the view of the eclipse is going to be a lot better in New Mexico than here, sadly, across Birmingham or central Alabama.
Right. So this is going to be an annular eclipse. So this is going to be something called the Ring of Fire. It's not a complete solar eclipse, but Albuquerque is supposed to be the epicenter of this, and at the same time that this is happening, our balloon fiesta, the International Balloon Fiesta that happens every year in Albuquerque at this time, will also begin to wrap up. So we're expected something spectacular. I mean, you have an annular eclipse going on with Balloon Fiesta. It's a photographer's dream happening in just a couple of days, October 14th, like you said. Now, next year, of course, there will be a complete solar eclipse, but that will go through the mid part of the country, and that's later on toward April of next year.
Okay, so I want to catch a flight back with you so that I can come see that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so when I was in New Mexico, I didn't get a chance to stay long enough to experience winters there. With it being El Nino season, can you explain a little bit about what you're expecting as we approach the winter season?
Yeah, so with El Nino, it affects the storm tracks, of course. That's the jet stream, and it's because of the warmer waters in the Pacific, right? So what's going to happen is we're going to go from this really dry monsoon, hopefully, to more of a snowier and wetter winter for Albuquerque. And you know, that's really most of the central and southern part of the United States, including here at home, of course. But in Albuquerque, we're really hoping for a snowier winter and hopefully just kind of make up some of that deficit that we're in right now for not really having much of a monsoon season.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention and let people know that Alabama's really your home state. Yeah. So where are you from in Alabama, or at least central Alabama?
Yeah, I've got to give a shout out to my Walker County people. I'm from Good Springs, if you know where that is. It's about 10-15 minutes south of Jasper. Down 269, so that's where my family is. I come and visit every time when I come on vacation.
Yeah.
This is still my home, and I'm always going to remember it as my home as well. So.
Oh, we love that. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you here on First Alert Weather Extra. And then again, Brandon, I also want to welcome you back home.
Thank you.
But yeah, thanks again for joining us here in Weather Extra. Still ahead on First Alert Weather Extra, history has been made as the first astronaut to live in space for more than a year returns home. His story when we return.
All right, well, you've heard us talk a little bit about El Nino. That's going to be coming back this season. Well, our very own meteorologist, Matt Daniel, goes in depth on El Nino and what that means for our area.
Well, you may have heard that we are in what we call an El Nino, and normally when we're seeing an El Nino, that's going to impact the patterns globally across the earth. And of course, what does that mean for our weather as we go into late fall and into the winter months? So this is what typically happens, not saying this is what's going to happen. So when we have a winter setup with El Nino, you have very active jet streams. You have the polar jet up towards the north and a subtropical jet stream that just brings in a lot of moisture. And sometimes in these kind of setups, when it comes to temperatures across the south, we could see cooler than average temperatures, mainly because we have cloud cover that can probably prevent temperatures from rapidly warming up. And then when it comes to precipitation, normally across the Midwest and in the northern plains, they will typically see drier than average conditions. But notice across the south, when you have that active jet stream moving across the region, you can get a lot of impulses of energy giving us stormy weather. So that could give us a wetter than average pattern. So we could be in store for a lot of rain going into the winter months. Now, what is the outlook from the Climate Prediction Center from NOAA? Well, they do have an outlook out for October, November, and going into December. And this is for the temperatures. Notice near average temperatures for the central parts of the country. That does extend into Alabama. So if our average high, for instance, is 60 degrees, we're going to be pretty close to that. Areas that could see temperatures above average is right along the East Coast, going into Florida and the West Coast, where they could see slightly above average temperatures. Precipitation-wise, they're sort of agreeing with this El Nino idea that we could see a slightly higher chance for some rain. So I know we're experiencing some abnormally dry conditions and dry weather for the next 7 to 10 days, but we might be breaking that as we go into the late fall and winter months. So here's the things we're going to have to watch for as we go into this upcoming fall and winter. Of course, with every winter, you got to look up to the north for Arctic air that could spill in. So we'll have to watch for cold air outbreaks. But the one thing we really need to watch is the warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico. We haven't really had any tropical systems to sort of cool those waters. So when you have a hot Gulf of Mexico in the winter months, that could give us more humidity, higher dew points, and stormier weather patterns. And that could unfortunately mean maybe heavy rainfall episodes and maybe severe weather. You know, we can get severe weather here, especially as we go November, December into January. So I'm going to be watching this for several weeks and months ahead to see how this El Nino is going to set things up for us. But typically, we could be seeing below average temperatures and maybe more rain than usual.
Great explainer there, Matt. And the El Nino has to do with the equatorial waters there over the Pacific and how that impacts the pattern there across the U.S. Nectar right now showing 80 degrees as we take a look at the setup here. Actually, we were looking at the view there a few moments ago, and we were seeing that we are actually looking at a mostly clear sky across the area. We got some dry air that's building in from the east direction, and the dryness is being driven in by high pressure back to the north and east of us. We have more of what we call a wedge effect, lower dew points as that air makes its way in from the northeast direction. There's our first alert muggy meter. As we go to the next several days, that drier air settling in. Of course, that doesn't bode well as far as our hope for any rainfall, so we're keeping it dry. College football looks dry for the forecast for the weekend. Just hot weather out there. You can see Georgia at Auburn, kickoff temperature of 85 at Jordan-Hare. Sunshine expected. Should be nice and comfortable in Starkville for the Alabama-Mississippi State game out at Scott Field and Davis-Wade Stadium. And then for JSU, that game's tomorrow night, Huntsville, Texas, a kickoff at 7 o'clock of 88 degrees there. East Tennessee State at Samford. 81 on Saturday, and Tuskegee at Alabama A&M, homecoming there in Huntsville, Alabama, kickoff temperature of 90 degrees. So hot weekend, Talladega race weekend coming up. You'll certainly want to pack the sunscreen, but it's more of a dry heat, and this dryness factor is going to stick around for several more days. You can see tomorrow, 3 o'clock, most areas, again, it's lots of sunshine out there, another dry day. Friday, we had some high-resolution data that wanted to squeeze out a couple of showers, so that's why we had a small 10 10% chance in there. Most areas are going to stay dry. Saturday, there's Sunday, Monday, right on through Tuesday and Wednesday. So it is a dry stretch. And of course, going into October, I know we've talked about it being our driest month on average. That certainly doesn't help out. Tropical Storm Philippe is that system is moving more towards the west here over the next several days, but expected to weaken into a depression, but it will bring some heavy rain to Puerto Rico. We're also watching what may soon become Rina, that's out over the Atlantic, but both systems no threat to the Gulf of Mexico at this time. I know we're watching the tropics, but we're also watching for those temperatures to take a tumble into the 60s tonight and tomorrow. Sunshine coming back 3 o'clock. You can see they're showing 86 degrees. Here's a 7-day forecast and looks dry. What a dry stretch there. But I mentioned, with it being less muggy, less humid, what we're going to be dealing with here is some more crisp feeling mornings there. But just as I started talking about weather, Lauren, one of our cameras, we had a perfect view of the moon, and then it went away. I was like, what happened? It's going to be, we're coming up on a full moon this weekend, so it's going to be a bright evening out there tonight, kind of comfortable, more of a crisp feel that we're going to have, at least a little taste of fall.
Yeah, a real minuscule taste of fall, West. So, of course, the big question on everyone's minds has been, when is it going to look like, well, first, when is it going to feel like fall? We got nothing for you regarding that just yet, but when will it start to look like fall outside? So y'all can send us in all those good weather photos on the First Alert weather app. So this is showing the expected foliage right now. Here we are Wednesday, September 27th, showing that, okay, across northeast Alabama, maybe we're seeing the colors begin to get a little bit more spotty here. But as we go forward in time, going into next week, we'll see more of us beginning to get in on some of those minimal colors. But it's really once we progress later into October. Here we are mid-October, October 11th, October 18th, beginning to get those partial colors. And then once we get into late October, early November, that's when we get to peak. And I think it's perfect, honestly, because right around Halloween, you can embrace spooky season with those beautiful fall colors outside. And then eventually we get into the dead of winter, whatever that means for us here in Alabama. Will be interesting to see how that plays out with El Nino. But just breaking it down for you, if maybe you were wanting to have a little weekend getaway up into northeast Alabama, North Alabama, maybe over into North Georgia to see the fall colors, I think the next couple weeks going to be hit or miss, but for us here in central Alabama, within the next week, looking good. Well, we were talking about here on the surface of the earth as we take a trip beyond the atmosphere. Talk about some flight delays. Astronaut Frank Rubio is back on Earth after being in space for over a year. Fox News correspondent Caroline Shively has more.
Touchdown. Touchdown confirmed at 6:17 a.m. Central Time.
NASA astronaut Frank Rubio has finally ended his record-breaking stretch at the International Space Station. He touched down in Kazakhstan Wednesday after 371 days in space, longer than any other American.
It's good to be home.
It's a record that Rubio never intended to break. He was supposed to be at the space station for half a year, but his ride home got dinged by space junk and all the coolant drained out of the radiator. The next ship wasn't set to arrive for another 6 months, so Rubio's mission time was doubled. Had he known about the extra stay,
I just would have had to say thank you, but no thank you.
The Army doctor and helicopter pilot worked with an international crew, including Russian cosmonauts. While tensions between the U.S. and Russia flared back on Earth, it was a very different story 250 miles up in space.
For our international partners, it's been just incredible to work with all of them.
One of the biggest physical challenges for the crew was actually coming home. Rubio and 2 cosmonauts had to endure more than 4 times the force of gravity as their capsule entered the Earth's atmosphere. After landing, they were pulled out and carried to a medical tent.
We're not standing, we're not walking, we're not bearing our own weight, and so it just takes some time to get your bones and your muscles used to doing that consistently back on Earth.
After more than a year of zero gravity, Rubio says he expects it to take 2 to 6 months before he'll feel normal again here on Earth. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Listen, I just hope they were sending up care packages of Dramamine. That's the only way you can get through that, right? So we'll be back with more First Alert Weather Extra after this break. But first, let's take a look at today's Weather Almanac.
So a beautiful night out there. You know, we got to preview those kickoff forecasts for the weekend. It's going to be a hot weekend, looks like.
It is. I know. We ain't got any real football weather in the forecast. Sorry, y'all. But hey, if you need to cool down, go to the library and go with
There
Tia.
you go.
She's got her library card now. We're so proud of her.
Yeah, let's go check out some. You were saying they had like a little kind of cave talking about the history, the mining history of the town.
Yes.
That's kind of cool.
It
should get
is.
a
It was really
reading
cool.
cave
And
here.
listen, I'm so excited to now venture out and go to different library locations throughout Jefferson County. So, hey, you might just catch me there.
Yeah, hey, I'm headed out to Cropwell tomorrow for a weather visit. So we're back on the road. We'll have some visit video right here on Weather Extra tomorrow night. I'll be back tonight with the updates on the forecast first at 9.